Hi students, this is Jamie, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in class today. I don't want to spread my germs around. I'm feeling a little bit better and I've made it out of the bathroom, and I don't think I'm going to have to go in there anytime soon. But I'm still feeling just kind of yucky, so I'm going to stay home today. My daughter was nice enough to come to school with me last night while I sat there with my big coat and hat on and tried not to touch anything, and she made those copies for you guys and lined them up on that table with the bulletin board, and so it was so great to have older children that can come help you. And I'm hoping that all of these resources will be helpful to you. This is what I had planned to do today in class. So as you see from the table, I put these worksheets down here. There were 5 different worksheets, and I put the answer keys up here, as well as the answer keys are online here in our Canvas course. And I also put the answer key for that study guide, not really a study guide, but that worksheet that I handed out last Thursday. I put the answer key to that on the bulletin board as well. And my request is that these answer keys stay right here on this bulletin board. You're welcome to check your work, but I just don't want them to disappear. I don't want someone to take them off the bulletin board and bring them home, because then other students will have a disadvantage because they won't be able to see these answer keys. But what I want you to know, I just want to go reiterate some information that I said before, and that this exam covers Chapter 7 and Chapter 8, and it's worth 100 points. We're going to have it on Thursday, November 6th from 9:30 to 11:30. It consists of multiple choice, some true and false, some fill in the blank. There's a label of a muscle man and the different muscles that you learned, a short answer, and then a skeleton is going to be set up in the classroom with 26 identification marks, 1 through 26. You're going to come up, I'm going to give you a clipboard with a sheet of paper that's numbered 1 to 26, and you're going to walk around the skeleton and fill in. For instance, you're going to find number 1, which is actually on the top of the skull. You're going to go look at that. You're going to say, oh, okay, that's the frontal bone, and then you're going to write frontal bone on that paper. And then when you are done, you're going to hand me that sheet in the clipboard, and then you're going to go back and sit down and continue to work on your test. So be thinking about if you're someone who would you rather like to sit down and take the written part of the test first, or would you rather like to come up and look at the skeleton first? Because I'm just going to take volunteers. I've done this for many years, and it works really well. We keep it really quiet. I have just 3 to 4 students at the skeleton at one time, and we just kind of rotate through. Never had it being a problem or a distraction. I keep the room nice and quiet. So as far as the skeletal system, you've got that helpful study tips from Jamie and Maureen sheet that I gave out about 2 weeks ago, and it really outlined for you that you needed to read the chapter, that you needed to review the learning objectives, and then it specifically gave you the titles of the different sections of the chapter that you needed to read and review and learn for the exam. And then where it says review worksheets and activities done in class, these worksheets here that I left out for you on that table are what they're talking about. These are the worksheets that I had planned all along for us to do today and for you to work on with me being there as a resource. That's why I'm posting the answer keys so that you can still be able to check your work. Also remember, for the bony identification with the skeleton, there is no word bank. You have to just know those muscles. Remember, if the spelling is close, I'm going to give you credit for it. I'm not a stickler about spelling. And the muscle man that you're labeling, there's a word bank. This picture right here, this worksheet that I gave out, is very similar to the muscle man with the word bank. The picture that I'm using is very similar to this with this type of word bank where you're identifying which muscle the line is pointing to. So this is a great resource for you to study. Also, at the end of the chapter, there are the study and review questions at the end of Chapter 7 and end of Chapter 8. Those are fabulous for you to learn. Those are the ones I'll be honest, those are the ones that are on the exam. I took them straight from the end of the chapter. I also took the multiple choice questions straight from these worksheets as well. So if you are doing the questions at the end of the chapter, you've been coming to class, you've been taking notes, you're reviewing and working on these worksheets, you're worked on this yellow sheet, which was white when I turned it in, or when I gave it out to you last week, then you're going to do just fine. The other thing that I think would be incredibly helpful is to put that CD in or go online that comes with your textbook and take the pre-quiz. There are all sorts of different types of quizzing activities, whether it's auditory, visual, kinesthetic. All of those activities would be fabulous for you to work on. Chapter 8, the muscular system. Again, you're going to want to read the chapter. You're going to want to review the learning objectives 1 through 16. And remember, in the helpful study sheets that I gave you that was titled MA 127 Exam Number 2, Helpful Study Tips from Jamie and Maureen, I actually copied off for you not only the learning objectives, but I answered each of them too. So that's you have that to study from. And then specifically, again, it tells you on the study packet which sections of the chapter to look at. There are a few that are not covered in this exam. We wait until we talk about the nervous system. And so those are like the basic things that I wanted to show you. And inside our course here, under the modules at the very end, is exams 2, and this is where I put the answer keys so that you can check yourself. And I really suggest that you take the time to sit down and try and do those worksheets without using your book, without using your notes, see what you know, and then go to the answer keys. If you just go to the answer keys, you're not really going to get the benefit of them, and I guarantee you're not going to be able to really memorize what's on the answer key. I mean, you have to be able to apply that information. Okay, now what I thought would be great to do is to do a review PowerPoint. So we're going to do a little review game, which was something that I had made for class today, and we'll just do it here online, and you can watch this as many times as you want. First question: which term describes a muscle action? Do insertions move towards origin? Does the origin move towards insertion? Antagonist contract while agonist relaxes? Antagonist and agonist both contract. So let's take a look at that. Let's start at the bottom. D. Antagonist and agonist both contract. Well, we know that agonist is the prime mover. It's the main muscle that's doing the work. So if we take your bicep, for instance, an elbow flexion, your bicep is the agonist, your tricep is the antagonist. Now, if they both contracted at the same time, go ahead and try that. What happens? Nothing, right? Because one of them has to be contracting, one of them has to be relaxing and lengthening for this to happen. So your bicep, your prime mover, your agonist, is contracting. Your bicep is contracting, it's shrinking, it's going in a smaller size, it's making that big ball at the end. If you think of the man that flexes the big bicep man, bodybuilder. So D is absolutely false, not going to be true. So the antagonist contracts while the agonist relaxes. Nope, that's opposite of what we just said. Origins move towards insertion. So what do we know about origins? We know that origins don't move. We know that origins are the most fixed part. We know that that's where the muscle connects. That can't be right. A. Insertion moves towards the origin. That's the correct answer, right? Because the insertion is the more movable part. It always is. And that's what moves towards the origin. Okay. Next one. Tendons attach to blank to blank. Does tendons attach muscle to muscle? Does tendons attach muscle to bone? Do tendons attach ligament to muscle? D. Do ligaments to bone? Okay. What do tendons attach? Well, we know tendons have something to do with muscle, don't we? So tendons attach muscle to bone. Tendons attach muscle to bone, right? Ligaments are what attach bone to bone, right? Good. The main muscle causing the movement is the prime mover, the antagonist, the synergist, or the fixator. It's the prime mover. The main muscle that caused the movement is the prime mover. How about, what are those helping muscles? What are those helping muscles called? What are those called? Those helping muscles that help the muscles along? Anyone? Anyone? All right, if you don't know the answer, I'm going to make you look it up. Look it up. Look up what, we know that we have the prime mover, but then we have these helping muscles that help the muscles along. They're not doing the main movement, but they are helping. Okay, there's my little tip for the day. Look that one up, definitely on the exam. The point where the muscle attaches to the movable bone is the, what's it called? What's the most movable part? Insertion, that's right. And there it is right there. You can see on this picture we've got our bicep right here and a bicep brachii. It's named a bicep brachii because bi means two. There's two heads to the bicep. Notice how the bicep connects right here. These are the origins. This is where it connects. Oh, bonus point, what's that? Coracoid process. Yes, coracoid process. This is the origin. The insertion of the bicep brachii is down here, which hooks on the brachioradialis. How do I know that that's the brachioradialis? How do I know that that's the radius of the bone right there? Because look right where it goes. The radius is always on the side of the thumb. That's how I know that. So the insertion for the biceps brachii is right here on the radius, right there. So the insertion is the most movable part. The muscles that assist the agonist are, what muscles assist the agonist? I threw some funny words in there, additives. Yes, it's antagonists. Remember, they have to work in pairs. One of them has to be the prime mover, the agonist. One of them has to be the antagonist so that they can work together. Excuse me. Muscle that is most important for breathing. What muscle do we need that's most important for breathing? Biceps, that's in our arm. Subscapularis, that's in the by the scapula. Intercostals, yes, intercostals are important. But what's the most important? The most important is the diaphragm. And because if we did not have the diaphragm is what? Is a big fan-like muscle. You saw it in your textbook. It's right underneath your lungs. When it contracts, it pulls down, actually. It pulls down towards your belly button. And when it pulls down, it actually creates a vacuum, and it creates more room for the lungs to expand. So yes, intercostals are important for breathing, but the most important is the diaphragm. This is when you look at someone who's a very high injury, spinal cord injury, and they're on a breathing machine. Think of Christopher Reeves, who was the actor who played Superman. He was high. He was a C3, and we know that from our chapter. That was a cervical, the third vertebrae of the cervical spine. That is where his injury was where it cut the cord. Because of that, he injured his diaphragm. He was on a ventilator so that he could breathe. So the most important muscle for breathing is diaphragm. Movement away from midline would be, so take your right arm right now, put it in midline, which is in the middle of your body, and now move it away. What's that term? Is that abduction or adduction? Abduction. Abduction always means moving away. So if your arm was up at your side and you were bringing it back towards the midline, that would be adduction, right? An example of rotation would be movement of the knee up and down. No, rotation means it goes around in a circle, or it moves from side to side. Does our knee move side to side? Well, I hope not. If it does, then it's probably like some terrible accident, because normally our knee just moves into flexion extension. There is no side to side movement with the knee. Movement of the hip back and forth. Still, that's either flexion or extension when you're talking about the hip. Movement of the head looking side to side. Yep, take your head right now and turn it to the right and turn it to the left. You are rotating on an axis. You are rotating on your atlas and your axis, the two top vertebrae of your spine. That's an example of rotation. The answer is C. Blank occurs when a muscle increases the angle between two bones at a joint. Okay, all of these questions that I'm talking about are on the exam, so slow it down when you get to this one. Read it twice. Blank occurs when the muscle increases an angle between two bones. So take your elbow. Okay, we're just going to take your elbow. We're going to look at the elbow and the bicep. Go ahead and bend it all the way up. And now act this out. So if we're talking about your elbow, the inside of your elbow, when I put my arm straight, look at what happens. When you bend your arm, what happens? So now think about that in an angle. So looking at your bicep and looking at your forearm, when they open up, what happens to that angle? It increases, right? And when you bend your arm up, it decreases. So blank occurs when a muscle increases the angle. So it's extension, right? Because when my arm is extended, there is more of an angle between those two joints. Muscle movement occurs due to the muscle's ability to right? So all muscles have to pull. They have to contract in order for them to cause movement. Contract is the right answer. Where is the bicep femoris located? Now, read this one carefully. If it said bicep brachii, we would think the arm. Here, bicep femoris, we know that the thigh bone is also called the femur. So, bicep femoris, where would that be located? That'd be your thigh. So make sure you don't read these too fast when you're taking the test. So bicep femoris is in your thigh. Isotonic or isometric. So here's some characteristics. You tell me if this is isotonic or isometric. There's the greatest increase in tension. Muscle length is unchanged. There is no movement. Go ahead and put your arms out in front of you. Put your hands in like a prayer position. And now without moving your arms, push together with your hands. Push as hard as you can. You're pushing. We have a great increase in tension. My muscle length is unchanged and there's no movement. What is this? Isotonic. You're right. What would be an example of isometric? Something where there's movement. If I was right now to drop down and do some push-ups and be going up and down and up and down, up and down, that's an example of isotonic movement. Isotonic means there's movement. Isometric means that there's no movement, no change in length. Alright, that's the end of my slideshow. Alright, you guys, I think you're going to do just fine on our exam on Thursday. I think I've given you plenty of resources, and I really do want you to know that every single question that's in the exam is either something that you've read in the book, we've talked about in class, it's in the review at the end of the chapters, or it's in one of these worksheets that we've done, or it's in one of the practice quiz questions that you can do online through your textbook. So I'm not pulling anything, out that's that we haven't covered in this class. I want to stress that. So if you're reading a part of the book and you're saying, wait a second, we never even talked about this, then we probably didn't. And you're right, it's probably that section that we're not going to cover right now. We're saving till the nervous system. Alright, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me. I am home. I can answer your emails as they come in. And keep on studying. Alright, talk to you soon.